let's have a look at new extension I just wrote called the System Content Security Policy. It's a plugin. It's a pair of plugins that provide a full range of options to add a content security policy to your website. And by full range, I mean everything I could think of, including the kitchen sink. We'll take a look at the kitchen sink in a minute. So, uh, I'm doing this as a live demo and installation on my gdpr.richie website. So this is start to finish. We're not starting with anything here. So content security brings up nothing. Let's install this new plugin. Done. First thing we do before we move on to configuring the system plugin is I'm going to enable the Ajax plugin. And the reason I'm doing this first is because I want to be receiving error messages from the very beginning of enabling the system plugin. And I know that sounds strange to want to receive error messages, but that's actually the purpose of this Ajax plugin. Your content security policy has the ability to report when something strange happens in a user's browser. So, say somebody links to some weird JavaScript, or they manage to inject a JavaScript into your page. If it violates, if whatever they've done violates a content security policy directive, then the report to or report URI settings can designate a destination for that data to go to. Now there's a website called report. I think it's report-uri.com or .org or something, and it's neat, but it sets a bunch of cookies. And I don't know if you've been following me, then you know that I've gone on this war against cookies for the past 4 years. With the first extension being my EUE privacy directive that actually removes cookies to comply with the law, and then I've been doing a lot of work with GDPR, which requires consent before cookies. So the last thing I want to do is connect my website to another website that's going to place cookies on there. So I basically had created the Ajax plugin so that I can receive those messages myself. I don't need to rely on another service that may or may not conform to what I want my website to do, which is operate without cookies. This one in particular, I want it to operate without cookies until the user accepts them, which is a big deal for me. Anyway, so before you enable the system plugin, the first thing you want to do is configure your Ajax plugin. And we're going to set a valid referrer to the domain name where we expect the reporting data to come from. I'm not going to blacklist anything here. This would be for, if you get somebody who figures out that you're running this extension and they want to send a bunch of junk to you, then you could just, you could blacklist their IP address or their network entirely. So if you've worked with any of my other paid extensions, a lot of them have this blacklist with CIDR functionality. So you can do IPv4, IPv6 addresses or networks and block entire ranges. I mean, you could block countries with this thing. So, last thing we've got down here. Now, I'm not going to enable it here, but you can have this Ajax plugin comes with a CLI script that you can use to create a cron job, and your nightly cron job will send the previous day's reports in a CSV file to any recipient that you choose in this field here. So you can opt to receive those reports in your site, and then you can also opt to send all of that data back to yourself in a cron job. So I've set my valid refers. That's really the only necessary setting in order to use the Ajax plugin to capture reports. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Here's the kitchen sink, but we don't have any data to show yet, so we'll come back to that later. That's important to use as a tool. So Ajax is enabled. Let's enable let's configure the system plugin here. So the main plugin tab here has a link back to the developer.mozilla.org documentation on the content security policy. It's very good, and if you're not sure about something, then you should go back and review the information that they have here or elsewhere. If you've got a better source, then great. I chose to link to this source because I like the way that the Mozilla guys write their documentation. And that's not the only place I link to it. I'm not leaving you high and dry. If you go to configure something, each of these links is the actual name of the directive. I didn't want to give it a different name to make it ambiguous. I used the actual name of the directive for the label, and I gave it its basic description in the pop-up or in the mouse over here. But I also linked each label to the documentation on the Mozilla developer website. So, each of these, if you wonder what it does, how to use it, what can go in these allowed address fields, or there are other types of fields. If you're confused about how to use it, just click on the heading. It'll open up the documentation in a new tab. Browse it and find the information you're looking for. So let's set some basic stuff here, and then we'll enable it, and you'll see what happens when content is blocked. Let's go ahead and set our default source to self, which is one of the valid settings. You can set you probably should set most everything to self, so that you're not loading fonts from external sources if you don't want them, or JavaScript from external sources, images from external sources. You can. It's really flexible, but then it's also very restrictive at the same time. So I'm going to set the default source to self, and then go into reporting directives. And because I have the Ajax plugin enabled, then this setting will work well for me. And I have a JavaScript in here that tries to figure out the correct URL based on several things. It tries to figure out the correct URL to use in your report-uri and report-to fields here. So you should just be able to copy this and paste it in. I hope that it works for you. It's really tough to write a script that figures out the correct URL for some things within Joomla. So report-to, this is an interesting one. It says it's experimental in the documentation, but it also says that that report-uri is being deprecated. So this one doesn't work yet, and this one won't work in the future. So my suggestion would be to implement both. And report-to is super easy. You pick a name. I've been in my testing, I've been calling it Ajax destination because that's what it is. Take that same name. You can create multiple groups. I don't know why, but you can. It's in the documentation. You're able to, and I'm not sure why that would be, but what the heck. So you give yourself your endpoint destination. Well, pardon me, your group name goes in your endpoint group setting. Max age, I believe that's in seconds. And then endpoints is the same URL as you have above. Now, something that I'm going to do in the future on my site using htaccess and not really just htaccess, I'm going to create a redirect so that I can make a cooler looking URL. It'll say report-uri here or something. Oops. It'll say report-uri. So if you know how to do that, this is not set in stone. It doesn't have to be exactly this. If you are okay using URL rewrites. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and enable the plugin and save, and then show you what happens. I have some external scripts here. Let's bring up the developer console here. That's fine. We're going to reload. Lots and lots of errors. This is normal. Don't freak out. This is totally normal. You see YouTube doesn't load, and more YouTube doesn't load, and somewhere in here we're going to see that Font Awesome doesn't load, and somewhere in here is Google Analytics. Oh well, doesn't matter. We're going to start at the very top here. Oh, here we go. Fonts.googleapis.com doesn't load because it violates the following content security policy directive, default source self. So this is telling us that we need to have load the style sheet. It's saying that this one doesn't load because it violates a policy. So now let's go into the policy and style source. Let's add fonts.googleapis.com in as a style source and see if that fixes our problem. It sure does. Google is no longer in there. But we're not loading our own style sheets. So we want to add ourselves in there. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I meant to click the plus. There we go. Self. So we had 6 items here blocked by that, and those are not there. This once you enable cookies on this site, it loads Google Ads, and that is basically for cookie demo. So wait, what is that one supposed to be? Script. So script source. We'll save that one. Reload. Well, now that we have a script source directive, the system, the browser knows that we're restricting based on script source. And since the only script source is pageadd2.googlesyndication.com, we need a self here. And once I do that, then a bunch of those, most of those. Let's go ahead and get rid of adservice.google.com for script source. And pageadd2, this one kind of indicates to me that there's going to be multiple. So let's turn that into a wildcard and see where we go here. Refuse to apply inline style because it wants the unsafe inline keyword. We can do that. Failed to load the font, fonts.gstatic.com. Let's go down here to, where did I lose font at? Our list is getting shorter. Refuse to load the font from my own website. So let's go back down here. Fonts.gstatic. Let's add self. Refuse to execute inline script. So we add inline to script source. Refuse to load the script platform.twitter. Okay. Default source self. Refuse to load frame. Okay, we need to add a frame source. Getting closer here. Refuse to load the script. Oh, Google Analytics. Knew that one was going to come up sooner or later. Script source. There's going to be an image source that goes along with that too. And again, as soon as we find it, we're going to add self. Oops, I don't want to do that. Google APIs.g.doubleclick.net. That is a frame. Just for the heck of it, let's add self into frame. Because why not? We can load our own stuff into frames. Let's see, platform.twitter wants to be allowed to make frames. And we already got Google Ads. Now let's do syndication.twitter. Save that, see how close we are getting. Look at that. Refuse to load the image from Google Analytics. So, image source, we're going to do self and Google Analytics. Save that. Right there. These are cross-site scripting errors and Chrome extension errors, so nothing else on the page here. So now at this point we have resolved all of our content security policy issues. Now this is super fun. Let's make sure we got no posts happening here. And we got one report here. Something's getting reported. CSP report. Fonts.gstatic. What's not going here? Oh, eval. So there's an unsafe eval in here somewhere. I guess it's got to be an unsafe eval. Let me find it. Effective directive. Okay, eval. Let's do that real quick then. Unsafe eval. We'll save that. And we will switch this to XHR. We're going to reload here and see what happens. Yeah, there we go. We got no reports. So what I was looking at there was the XHR report, the Ajax request to send the error reporting data back into our site. So we're receiving error messages when a browser refuses to load something. And we can look at those error messages. Well, you can have it sent to you in the nightly CLI cron job if you set that up, or you can go into the Ajax plugin and look at the browser, at the record browser. So these are all the things that failed while we were making all those configurations to the plugin. So 17 pages of them, and this is a neat browser that I put together in here for it. It's a bootstrap table that has it makes Ajax requests to pull the data from the database, so you can look at all these reports in real time without having to reload the whole page. That's what I meant by real time. I meant without page refresh. So by doing this, you are restricting the script items that can be put into your site. You're also restricting the image items. So, I mean, say you run a forum and you want to have only images that are uploaded to your forum. You don't want people hot linking to images elsewhere. You can add a directive that says that only images hosted by self can be displayed. So, if somebody does upload this image, then maybe they're messing with their browser so that they get to see it, but nobody else will, because if their browser obeys the content security policy, then that image will not be displayed if it violates the policy. And you can look at all these different pieces here. It tells you, inline. Here's a hover. This item was not loaded. In this report, this item was not loaded. And if we go back to page 1, you're going to see the most recent items, and you'll see that our policy is pretty big. And then as we go down the list here, the policy gets shorter and shorter and shorter until we get down to 17, where the policy is just barely nothing at all. So you can watch the progression of your data if you want to. It's pretty neat. So let's now that we've finished configuring everything, let's go to securityheaders.io and run a scan of gdpr.richyweb.com. Hey, there it is. Lots of people fail these tests. If we go back to the front of this website, they've got a whole section of people who have recently failed. There we go, Hall of Shame, all Fs. These are people who have scanned here very recently. Like I after my testing on my test server, I put it on my website, richyweb.com, and the first test result was an A, and I was in this list here earlier. But here we are right here. gdpr.richyweb.com is an A. Lots of people run these tests and they get Fs and Ds and worse. Because of the way Google Analytics runs, I had to do unsafe inline and unsafe eval which is why we don't have an A+. So if you are not running Google Analytics, you can get a better grade than an A, because you will be less I don't know. They don't like unsafe eval, and there are some tests to explain how that works and why that's insecure. But if they can't get the script on your page, then they're just messing with their own browser. So anyway, back to gdpr.richyweb. It's been a fun plugin to write. Here's the content security policy it generates in the actual response header, and report to with our Ajax destination gets put right here. So all the headers are present, and just for good measure, it also puts that same content security policy into your document as a meta tag, which is also part of the spec. So in the spec, it says you can do one or the other. I chose to do both just because it doesn't hurt anything. And it's easier to read this than it is to go look at your headers. So this is going to be up on my website here very shortly. I do the demos before I build the product page, so that I can launch the product page with the demo built into it. As soon as I get done with that, I'm going to be posting this up to extensions.joomla.org, and then I'll wait several weeks for them to approve it. So I hope you enjoyed the demo, and come to gdpr.richyweb.com to check out the headers and the meta tag if you want, or richyweb.com, and see what we're doing. Thanks.